It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday.
Be strong.
Welcome again to 5 on the Backhand Side. This week we break down the final episode of Season 1 of Lovecraft Country, titled Full Circle. Warning, there will be spoilers. Thanks for clicking on this video, and be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. With that out of the way, let's get to the final breakdown. This week we begin with our group returning from Kentucky, and Tick begins to unbind the book to cure Dee. The book flips to a page that shows the same symbol as Tick's birthmark before he and Letty collapse. Tick has another vision of Hannah in the burning lodge, and she tells him,
"The answer is in your blood."
Letty has a vision of Hattie in the burning house in Tulsa. We finally learn what Hannah has been trying to tell Tick. We learn from Hattie that they are on an ancestral plane unknowingly created by Hannah after she took her own life. Hannah explains to Tick that magic is a gift to pass on and not to be feared. She tells him that he will save everyone. Hattie tells Letty that she must protect the Book of Names and use it. Tick finally gets to see his mom on the ancestral plane. She tells him that he must sacrifice himself for something greater and to face his destiny head on. Hattie is teaching Letty a spell in the Book of Names as Tick and his mom enter. They circle the bed on the ancestral plane and Hattie begins to recite a spell. Dee is cured, or so we thought. Letty goes to write something down, and we see that Dee's left arm is still withered from the curse. They did not get to her in time. Tick and Letty head to the basement in her house. It's good to see Butch the Black Guard Shoggoth is still around. They go down to the flooded tunnel and to the entrance below the museum. They recite the spell, and Titus Braithwaite and Hannah appear. Tick and Letty try to subdue him, but Titus escapes and appears before Tina and Ruby as they are driving. He manages to tell Christina that they have the book before he is pulled back. This time, Hattie and Dora are also there to greet him. Tick stabs him and removes a brand from his chest before his body fades away. Tick and Letty recite the rest of the spell, as Hattie, Hannah, and Dora fade away in turn. Mother-daughter time! Dee is upset that her mother left her, and Hippolyta explains that she left to become what she imagined her to be, but in the end, she named herself Mother to be back with her. Dee does not want to hear it. They need to head back to Artem before the equinox, but still need a piece of Tina, thinking Ruby might help. Hippolyta volunteers to help with the next spell. Tina shows up and asks for the book, and in return she will find another way to complete her spell without Tick's blood. Tick says no, and Tina removes Letty's invulnerability. They head back to the house, and Tick makes a call to the Drake Hotel. He meets up with Gia. He admits that what they had was real, and apologizes to her for how he behaved. She reveals that her mother died recently, but was finally able to love her like a daughter. He tells her that they are connected and are family. I was so glad they finally made up. I love Jamie Chung's character. Ruby and Letty meet at their mother's grave, where she tries to convince Ruby to work with them and take a piece of Christina. Ruby turns her down. Before she walks away, Letty says there is more she needs to know. Hippolyta shows Dee her comic that she's now updated. Dee is amazed, and Hippolyta tells her that she learned from an artist named Athua so she could teach her. Dee says she'll never be able to draw again, before Hippolyta leads her to a room. We hear lots of sounds as Dee looks around, before we cut to Ruby and Tina. We don't know what she saw as of yet. Ruby and Christina both appear to be playing mind games during this scene. Christina is going over the details of her spell and is worried that it may not work. When Tina tells Ruby how she created the first potion, she mentions her blood, and Ruby's ears perk up. Ruby tells her that her spell is going to work. Is Ruby just using Christina to get some of her blood, or does she really care for her? They finally kiss, and Tina asks if she has ever been with a woman. Ruby says it's her first time. The things we do for family. Tick and Letty are in church talking, and Letty says that they should now believe in God. I think they're getting baptized, but they don't show it. Back in the travel guide shop before our group heads to Artem, Gia included, Ruby appears and brings a vial of Tina's blood. At this moment, I'm thinking this is Tina as Ruby, but they all start singing Life Can Be a Dream as she travels with them. I doubt Tina would know the words to this song. A moment of levity before Autumn. Montrose is laying down salt like one of them Winchester boys. Tick eats the flesh of Titus and drinks the blood of Tina. Montrose gives him something to chase it. They split up and Tick heads towards the ruins of the burnt lodge. As he enters, the townsfolk appear and lead him away. The rest of our group are placing symbols all around the village to complete a binding triangle. Salt Truck Montrose is still laying that salt like it's about to snow. Letty and Ruby are in the tower and are about to leave before Ruby says something that triggers a response in Letty.
I feel like I understand the pull of family for the first time.
I knowed it. She knows it's not Ruby. Christina, now in the body of Ruby, tells Letty that she caught Ruby trying to steal the potion. Townspeople start to surround Montrose, Jiha, and Hippolyta on the bridge. Christina tells her Ruby is dead, and Letty decks her in the face and is shocked that it worked. There is an all-out brawl on the bridge. What is this, a kung fu movie? How is it that they are not overwhelmed? There are only 3 of them with no weapons and 30 attackers with pitchforks and spades. The trio is finally subdued, and Ruby throws Letty from the tower to her death.
Hell no, to the no.
Dee is in Woody reading her comic when we hear and see shadows of a Shoggoth. Tick is laid on the altar as Christina approaches with the book. The townspeople bring the others into the room as well. Dee is attacked by a Shoggoth before Tick's Shoggoth comes to her rescue. Tina begins to sacrifice Tick and bathes in his blood. The spell is starting to work. Back at the tower, Letty awakes. She runs back to the altar and makes it back in time to see the look on Tick's face. Their eyes connect as he dies. She stabs Tina from behind and begins an incantation. Tina says she is too late because she is now immortal. Jia remembers the words of the shaman, and she places herself on the stairs between the darkness and the moon. Her tails shoot out and grab Tick and Tina. Letty continues to chant, and we get flashbacks of the plan and what happened to Ruby. There is an explosion, and the screen fades to black. Tina is trapped under rubble, trying to cure herself with a spell as Letty approaches. Tina says she has bound her from magic. Letty says,
Every white person in the world.
Montrose tries to wake Tick in vain, and Hippolyta hands him a letter. Letty, Jiha, Hippolyta, and Montrose carry his body as the letter is read by Tick in a voiceover. Tina is still under the rubble as Dee and the Shoggoth approach. She begs Dee for help, and Dee says she still hasn't learned. She removes her jacket, and we see a robotic arm. She bends down and ends Tina's life. The Shoggoth walks up the stairs and lets out a mighty howl. Fade to black. That's all, folks. That is the final episode of Lovecraft Country. This gets a 5 out of 5. I am just so thankful for Misha Green blessing us with this wonderful series. All of the actors were great and made this an amazing piece of television history. This is one of those series that does not need a second season, just like Watchmen. It deserves to end the way it did and be remembered as a classic piece of black television. Thanks again for watching this video, and be sure to like and subscribe to this channel and to others similar on the way out. And always, keep it copacetic.